Good evening and welcome to the East Gippsland Shire Council meeting of Tuesday the 16th of December 2025. East Gippsland Shire Council live streams, records and publishes its meetings via webcasting. The recordings are available for viewing by the public by following the link on the Council's website. During the meeting, any members of the public who are addressing the Council will have their image and comments recorded. No other person has the right to record council meetings unless approval has been granted by the chair. If technical difficulties are experienced with the live streaming during the meeting, we will adjourn until the issue is resolved. If they can't be resolved, the meeting may be postponed to a later time or date. East Gippsland Shire Council acknowledges the Gunai, Kurnai, Monaro and Bidawal people as the traditional owners of the land that encompasses East Gippsland Shire and their enduring relationship with country. The traditional custodians have cared and nurtured East Gippsland for tens of thousands of years. Council values their living culture and practices and their right to self-determination. Council pays respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in East Gippsland, their elders past, present and future. In line with the Local Government Act, councillors are able to attend council meetings electronically or in person. When participating in a meeting electronically, a councillor can only be recorded as present when they confirm that the following criteria is met. 1, they can hear proceedings and can be heard by other members in attendance, and 2, they can see other members in attendance and can be seen by other members. Councillor Buckley, can you see and hear us?
Yes, Mayor, I can.
Can you confirm that the location you are participating from is secure to ensure that any confidential items can be dealt with in a confidential manner?
Mayor, yes, indeed it is.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And Councillor Farquhar, can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can. Thanks, Mayor.
And can you confirm the location you are participating from is secure to ensure that any confidential items can be dealt with in a confidential manner?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you. Item 1.2 on the agenda is apologies, and there are none for tonight's meeting. We now move to item 1.3, declarations of conflict of interest. Councillors are reminded that the Local Government Act requires conflicts of interest to be disclosed in accordance with the procedures set out in the governance rules. This includes stating the 3 following points: the item for which you have a conflict, whether the conflict of interest is general or material, and an explanation of why the conflict exists. Are there any declarations of conflicts for tonight's meeting?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, and through you. I have a conflict of material interest in regards to item, I'm just checking here, 5.4.3, Community Grants Impact, 2025-26. I'm the Secretary of the Lake Omeo Committee who have applied for a grant.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And Ms Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I have a general conflict of interest with the same item 5.4.3, Community Impact Grants, because I'm a committee member, just a general committee member for one of the organisations that has applied.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Once we reach the relevant items, those with the conflict of interest must leave the meeting before the discussion can begin. You'll be invited back into the meeting once the item has been completed.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt your train of thought there. However, we were unable to hear Ms Johnson's conflict of interest.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Ms Johnson's just coming over to the council table.
Sincere apologies, Councillor Buckley. I thought my voice could obviously propel further than it can. I have a general conflict of interest with item 5.4.3, Community Impact Grants, because I am a general committee member of the Bairnsdale Pony Club who applied for one of the grants that are being considered tonight.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Next on the agenda is the confirmation of minutes. Councillors, the minutes for the meetings held on the Tuesday the 18th of November and Thursday the 20th of November have been circulated to you. and I trust you've all had the opportunity to review them. Do I have a mover to confirm those minutes? Councillor Eastman to move, and a seconder?
He wants to.
And Councillor Crook. Councillor Eastman, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that they are an accurate reflection of those meetings.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. That's carried. The next meeting is scheduled to be held on Tuesday, the 17th of February 2026 at the Corporate Centre, 273 Main Street, Bairnsdale, commencing at 6 p.m. Item 1.6 is requests for leave of absence. CEO, have we any requests for tonight?
Thank you, Mayor. I've received no requests.
Thank you. Councillors, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent passing of Frank Grando, our long-serving maintenance officer with the concrete crew. Frank began with council on the 9th of December 2002 and remained in the same role for 22 years, an extraordinary show of dedication, reliability and genuine love for our organisation and the community he served. Frank was a much-loved member of the council work family. His easygoing nature meant he easily connected with everyone he met. He was a wonderful storyteller, always ready with a joke, and always delivered them with his trademark cheeky smile. Through his work, from footpath replacements and general maintenance to projects on our playgrounds, Frank made a real and lasting difference to countless people in our community. He was often the first point of contact between council and the public, and he approached that role with warmth, patience and pride. The community thought the world of him, and he truly enjoyed interacting with them. On behalf of council, we extend our sincere condolences to Frank's family, his friends and his colleagues. Councillors, I now call for a councillor to move the following motion of condolence. That council acknowledges the recent passing of Frank Grando, a valued member of East Gippsland Shire Council staff, and extends its sincere condolences to his family. Can I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Davis. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Davis, would you like to speak to the motion?
Firstly to pass on condolences to the family, Steph and family, if you're listening, Steph. Frank will be sorely missed throughout the organisation and throughout the community, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. And Councillor Crook? Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? No, in that case, thank you, councillors. I'll now put that motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. Councillors, before I move on, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the recent tragedy on one of Australia's iconic beaches. Our thoughts are with the individuals, families, friends, first responders and their communities whose lives have been forever changed following the horrific attacks at Bondi Beach on Sunday. These events have shocked and saddened people across the country. We unreservedly condemn all violence. While the act of terror occurred far from East Gippsland, we know the impact has been felt here as well. Many in our community are grieving, distressed or struggling to make sense of what has occurred. It is time to support one another. Fostering inclusion and connected communities is a cornerstone of what we do. Our commitment to encourage, respect and value everyone remains as we try to comprehend the events at Bondi and stay connected as our country recovers. I encourage anyone who is struggling to reach out for support and to check in on those around them. Councillors, I'll now call for any councillor to move the following motion of condolence. that Council acknowledges the recent tragic events at Bondi Beach and extends its sincere condolences to the families, individuals, friends and their communities who have been affected. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Travaskis. And second of Councillor Allen. Would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. It's a very sad occasion, and our condolences to those people who are so severely affected. I have a personal debt to a Jewish eye surgeon. I had my cataracts removed some years ago, and my eyes are a bit weird, so the optometrist said, look, get someone who's really top of their class, and I found out afterwards this person was Jewish, so I'm a recipient of some of the Jewish skills and expertise. Also in Orbost, back in the 60s and 70s, the hospital up there was in dire straits. They'd run out of money, and a chap called Henry Silverberg owned the sawmill at New Morella, and he was a major contributor to that hospital and as well worth. We have many Jewish people who have contributed very well and diligently, and we owe a great debt to many of these Jewish people. It was mentioned up at that massacre that there's many of them that are thinking of returning back, going back to Israel. That's probably something that many people expected, but it will be a severe loss if we lose many Jewish people. So my condolences to all the Jewish people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Travaskis. And Councillor Allen?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is just a horrible, tragic event, but it not only affects those people that were present at Bondi as Jews celebrating Festival of Light, it affects everyone that responded, watched the events on TV. It just echoes right through the community, and I think all of us sincerely pass on our condolences to those that have lost people, but also our gratitude to the responders who moved into the line of danger to help others. And you know, I think that we look around at times and we think, what's the world coming to? But when you see that sort of generosity of spirit and courage, you know, it's the worst, at the worst time that the best comes out in people. And I think that was pretty evident. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. And would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? Councillor Buckley, you've got your hand.
Thank you, Mayor. So, look, it's a really hard time for Australians right now, and so unity is really important, and having strong leadership is critical. My personal view is that we have the right to choose who we love and what we believe in and how we live, as long as we, you know, abide by the principles of doing no harm. So we don't live in a perfect world, and if you're lucky enough to live or be born in Australia, then to be Australian, we need to embrace our culture. So calling for reform of our immigration policy and strengthening the screen.
Councillor Buckley, this is a condolence motion.
I think yes, I understand.
Yep.
But I suppose I'm supporting the condolence motion by saying that we support with heartfelt sincerity the pain and the suffering. However, we're looking for leadership to ensure that these types of unnecessary acts never happen again in our country. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Thank you, councillors. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. Item 1.8.1 is petitions. Council has received a petition which is an objection to name change of View Street in Lakes Entrance. And General Manager Business Excellence, Ms Johnson, would you please present the petition?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you was petition titled Objection to the Name Change of View Street Lakes Entrance, it states, we the undersigned hereby petition East Gippsland Shire Council. My computer has just locked. I'm very sorry. Strongly object to the proposed changing of the name of View Street in Lakes Entrance. This street name has historical significance in and on itself. It is the original View Street within the 3909 postcode area. We request that View Street in Lakes Entrance retain its name regardless of the fact that it is and always has been a no-through road for vehicles. So we've obviously received this petition in line with our governance rules. Just a little bit of background, councillors, for your benefit. So road renaming is really a quite complex and but necessary process. The reason that we do renaming is to solve issues of duplication. On this occasion, we have a View Street in Lake Tyres and we have a View Street in Lakes Entrance. What happens is if you've got duplicated names, you can have significant safety issues when you think about your first responders being able to go to the right View Street. However, we do absolutely acknowledge that the residents of View Street can find it extremely inconvenient and frustrating to have their street name changed. What we originally did was propose to rename View Street Lake Tyres Beach because it was a newer street and had less residents. Quite rightly, they objected to that renaming and said that View Street Lakes Entrance should be renamed because it is a cul-de-sac and does not meet the naming rules. That is a valid objection and would have been upheld by VCAT. So we did further consultation with both locations and proposed compliant names to both to the View Street Lakes Entrance, with the view that if we could change the road type to a view in Lakes Entrance, that at least was going part of the way of solving what the attachment was to that particular street name for the Lakes Entrance residents. We've now gathered all the feedback and we've written back individually to people who've put in responses. And the next steps for us is that we'll go back to all of the affected residents in January and give them another opportunity to give us further feedback. The final thing that I'll say is that what we do as hard as we possibly can is make it as easy as possible when we do change street names, and we advise as many of the authorities as we possibly can when we do have to do things like change street names. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report, so I will now call on any councillors to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor Allen. And do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Crook, thank you. And Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, I just pass on my thanks to all the residents that have signed the petition and no doubt that will be given due consideration. So thank you to everyone who did.
And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion? Is the motion opposed, councillors? Yes, Councillor Eastman.
Yeah, at the moment, sorry, I'm opposed to the motion. I think that the residents' petition has quite a bit of weight in my eyes, and what I've seen from what I can see with geographic place names and whatever, I'm just not satisfied yet that all the actions have been taken to satisfy those residents. And I know from past experience when your address changes, yes, you've got a few agencies that you've got to contact, but you've also got an enormous contact list that you have to work through too. So it's no easy task to sort of undergo any name changes. At the moment, I understand that the officers are doing what's the most appropriate thing. I just find it quite difficult, and so currently I'm opposing the motion.
Thank you, Councillor.
If I might, could I seek some clarification there? The motion is to accept the petition.
I thought it was to... It's further.
Okay.
Sorry, I've just lost it in my notes here.
If I may,
Thank
I'll
you.
read out the motion, which is to receive the petition. 2, notes the petition will be referred to the General Manager Business Excellence for consideration and a response. And 3, notes that the CEO will arrange for council officers to write to the head petitioner advising them of their actions. So, yes, Councillor Crook, it's just to receive the petition at this stage.
Thank you.
My apologies, I thought it was to take some action on the actual petition.
Thanks, Councillor Rees. Okay, I'll now put the motion to anyone for the motion? Like to speak to the motion? Councillor Buckley? No.
I support the motion.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to questions of council. CEO, are there any questions for tonight's meeting?
Thank you, Mayor. For the first time in a very long time, we have no questions of council for the meeting this evening.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is 1.8.3, public submissions. We have one speaker attending virtually who wishes to speak to item 5.4.1. They will be called upon at the item to make their submission. Item 1.9 is items for noting. In accordance with the Local Government Act, a copy of the Audit and Risk Committee Annual Performance Report is to be tabled and subsequently recorded in the minutes of the meeting. Item 2 on the agenda is notices of motion, and there are none for tonight's meeting. Item 3 is deferred business, and there is none for tonight's meeting. Item 4 is councillor delegate reports. Councillors, I encourage you to submit your written reports for inclusion in the minutes. Oops. We will now move on to officers' report. The first report is item 5.1.1, Council of Representation Register 2024 to 2028, Annual Review for 2026. CEO, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. As councillors would be familiar, councillors are allocated to a range of committees to represent the views of council and to reflect council positions on those committees. Every year, as soon as possible after the election of the Mayor and Deputy Mayor at the Statutory Council meeting, it's necessary to undertake an annual review of the register. That review has been undertaken and is provided as attachment 1, and this report is seeking endorsement of the representation on various committees as shown in the Council of Representation Register for the 2026 calendar year, as provided with attachment 1. Mayor, I would point out that there is one small change that is made to the officer recommendation, that there is an amendment to the attachment 1 to allow for the appointment of Councillor John White to the Agricultural Sector Advisory Committee, with Councillor Barry Davis to act as the substitute. The report is set before you, councillors. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification regarding the contents of the report or recommendation? And
Yes.
Councillor Buckley, you have a question?
Yes, through you, Mayor, to the CEO. I'm just wanting to seek some clarification into regards to the Road Safety Committee. I was under the understanding that myself and Councillor Travascus would be both delegates on that committee, not myself acting as a substitute. Can I seek some clarification around that, please?
Thank you, Councillor Buckley, and through you, Mayor. Because there isn't a very clear terms of reference for that committee, we could further amend this to this recommendation to also allow for 2 delegates to the East Gippsland Local Community Road Safety Group, if that is what the councillors are wishing. So Councillor Buckley, you may wish to add that as a further amendment to the motion.
Yes, that's the request, please, through you, Mayor.
So Mayor, perhaps we can just pause for a moment. I can work with the officers and we can just make that amendment as we're going, and then rather than have the councillors need to amend the motion, I'm happy that we can make that small amendment to the delegations.
Thank you, CEO.
Pretty good. Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Buckley, does that meet your requirements?
Happy with it, thank you.
Thank you. So, Mayor, we now have a slightly further amended motion before us, or a recommendation from officers, which is also to appoint Councillor Sonia Buckley as a delegate to the local community road safety group rather than as a substitute.
Thank
The
you.
report is before you.
Thank you, CEO. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report, but it's now on the screen, and this is the amended one. So I'd now call on any councillor to move a motion. Councillor Buckley, thank you. And do we have a seconder for the motion? And Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say that this is a really important part of what councillors do in representing their communities, is to be at the forefront of committees, doing important work with MAV, advocacy work. It's integral to the outcomes that we have for our region, and I fully support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you. Is the motion opposed? I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to reports from the Assets and Environment Directorate. The first report is item 5.2.1, CON 2026-1745, expression of interest for construction and operation of compost facility. General Manager, Assets and Environment, Mr McConnell, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report that seeks endorsement of a short list of respondents to the expression of interest process, and to enable progression of those shortlisted respondents to a request for tender stage for the organics composting facility at the Bairnsdale Regional Landfill. So it's the next step through the process, and importantly though, it doesn't commit council to a final delivery model or operator at this point in time. It's just to enable us to move forward to that next stage. Councillors, you've been well briefed on this, this item. We have an obligation to provide for a food organics and garden organics collection and treatment process by 2030. That's a requirement from the Victorian Government. Our assessment has been this process is the best way to get to that. It's really also important in terms of reducing what we dispose of to landfill, and there's a whole lot of things, both financial and environmental benefits that flow from that. We've stepped through design process. You've been briefed on those. We went through a procurement process to test the market and understand better what the options were for provision of these services. Public EOI was advertised in July this year, and attracted a strong response. So we've got that information, and that's presented to you in the attachments, the confidential attachments. So councillors, before you is a recommendation. It's asking you to endorse the shortlisted response As part of that, there's an exemption that's required to be approved. The shortlisting process is a legitimate and established process set out under the procurement policy, so it's just a procedural matter that, and then then move forward to a select request for tender, which will be structured to allow separable portions and make available to councillors that option to decide delivery models at a later time. Importantly, councillors, again, this is a confidential item, and the confidential details are in the attachment. So if you do want to talk about the attachment, just let us know. So we would need to move into a confidential session if you want to talk about those details. But before you is the report, you've got the recommendation there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification regarding the contents of the report or the recommendation? No, I see none. Councillors, would someone like to move the motion? Happy to someone to move. Thank you, Councillor White. And someone to second the motion, Councillor Allen. Councillor.
Can I just confirm who was seconding the motion?
Who was
Councillor Davis. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. This is a project that's been going for several years, something that I was, along with the members of the staff out there at the landfill, were very passionate about. We're almost there. It's going to have not only a great benefit to council as a way of not throwing things into the pit and burying them, and then produce something that is quite productive, and those recipients of that product will benefit greatly because it's an organic product and could be used for everything from a home garden to a broadacre property. And I'm very pleased to support this at this stage because, as I said, we've been following it for many, many years, and looks like we're almost there. And in what Mr McConnell said about needing to be done by the state government's legislation by 2030, thank goodness we got started without being prompted. This was our idea, so I'm very pleased.
Thank you, Councillor White. And Councillor Davis, would you like to speak to the motion?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Is the motion opposed? I see none. In that case, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The next report is item 5.2.2, CON 2026-1748, Old Slipway Seawall Storm Damage Repairs in Lakes Entrance. Mr McConnell, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, the purpose of this report is to seek your approval to award a contract for the replacement of the seawall at the Old Slipway in Lakes Entrance. The seawall in question is about 45 metres long. It's a section of wall that was suffered damage during storm conditions back in August 2024. The seawall is actually DECA's responsibility, and what DECA were able to do was to secure some funds to support council in replacing that seawall. So that's a project now that council is project managing on behalf of DECA. Of course, we've got a strong interest in this because the seawall protects our assets adjoining the seawall as part of the Slipway development. So council staff have worked with DECA in terms of the design and the procurement process. Council staff will manage the construction, again with support from DECA. So it's an important partnership. Our interest is in protection of our assets, and DECA is providing the funding to do so, which is really important. Again, confidential procurement report, details in the confidential attachments. If you've got any questions, let us know and we can deal with those in camera. But if there's more general questions about the report, I'm happy to take those. You have the recommendation in front of you.
Thank you, Mr McConnell. Are there any questions of clarification regarding the contents of the report or the recommendation, councillors? No questions? Okay. So I'll now call on a councillor to move the motion. Thank you, Councillor Allen. And do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crook. Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Look, this is essential work that's got to be done, and the fact that it's been funded by an outside source, being Decca, is...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Councillor Allen, if we could just get you to move the motion before you speak to it. Sorry.
You better do that, yeah. All right, so so the blank to fill in would be Carter Marine, is that correct? And then the rest of it should be as read?
That's right.
And take it as read. All right, yeah, as I said, it's essential work, and the fact that it's been funded from outside council is a great outcome, and I look forward to seeing it completed.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. And Councillor Crook? No. Does any other councillor wish to speak to the motion? No. I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. Motion is carried. The next report is item 5.2.3, Con 2026-1751, Spillway and Bridge Replacement at Livingston Park, Omeo. Mr McConnell, would you please present your report?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, before you is a report recommending the award of a contract for reconstruction of the Spillway and Bridge at Livingston Park, Omeo. This is stage 2 of a two-stage redevelopment and flood protection works within the broader Livingston Park area in Omeo. You'll recall on a recent visit we had the opportunity to see the completion of stage 1 and various rock chutes for direction of water and through the park during flood conditions, and we inspected where stage 2 was, which is replacement of the spillway and the bridge. Importantly, the design is such that the water within the dam behind the spillway stays at the same level and so continues to provide the same services as it has previously. Just like to recognise both state and federal governments that have contributed to funding of this broader piece. The funding has been used for stage 1, we're now moving on to stage 2, but I think it's important to recognise support from those. This contract will see renewal of the damaged concrete and rock spillway structure and the pedestrian bridge. And overall, it's about enhancing and protecting Livingston Park for the future. Councillors, you have the recommendation in front of you. Again, details in the confidential attachment. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in regard to the report or the recommendation?
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Mr McConnell, can you give us an outline of the development of Livingston Park, the improvements, what's been done and what's expected to be done, and the costs?
Thank you. So I think the broader, if you take a step back from a moment, Livingston Park is part of it provides a setting for the trailhead for the Omeo mountain bike track, and so there's been some significant improvements to Livingston Park as part of that project, including the development of the pump track and things of that kind, so really important. During the period of bushfire grants, we were able to secure funding to see improvements to Livingston Park, and then as we stepped through that project was developed really to focus on flood mitigation work. So these are works that were required in any case for Livingston Park. When we get a serious rainfall event, flows through Livingston Park historically have been very fast and tended to cause damage in a range of ways to that existing infrastructure and vegetation and so on. And so there are some details in this report, but in essence that the work has been in these two stages to firstly, create the rock chutes, etc., as flood protection works, and that's been the real focus in recent times. Sorry? Yeah. So this work then continues that. That's part of the broader flood protection works, yeah.
Sorry, Mayor, through you. The general idea of costings of the overall improvements to Livingston Park?
Let me just check something on that. I believe it was about $1.8 million for the overall component.
Through you, Mayor, it might be one we take on notice
Yeah.
and get back to the councillor.
Thank you.
Okay, take on notice. Thank you. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And do I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Buckley, would you like to speak to the motion? Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
yes, I'd like to move the motion that council accept tender submitted by Jarvis Norwood Constructions Proprietary Limited and as read.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And would you like to speak to the motion? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So, look, it's been quite a privilege to watch the work that's been undertaken in Omeo, being, you know, the centre of the Omeo district. I think it's just flourished since council has cast its eye upon it. There's more work going ahead into the future with master plans. It brings a lot of hope to the community of the Omeo district. They're very proud. I think the council can be very proud, and the contractors, of the work that they're doing, and it provides safety into the future for flooding and for the environment itself. So, councillors, I think this is one that we've sat around the table and heard about and supported, and it is a terrific place to visit for tourists alike, and we're seeing a huge uptake in people visiting our little district, and I'm just extremely satisfied as a councillor to see this work done, and I want to thank the team and all the effort that has been put in by the organisation. So I commend this motion to all councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Just to say, this is a great project. It's strengthening the natural flood defences in the middle of Omeo, restoring safe access, protecting biodiversity. What is not to like? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And is the motion opposed? No. Does any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to reports from the Business Excellent Directorate. The first report is item 5.3.1, endorse updated procurement policy. General Manager, Business Excellence, Ms Johnson, would you please present your report?
Thank you very much, Mayor. So the Local Government Act under sections 108 and 109 requires council to have a procurement policy, and the policy must be reviewed at least once during your 4-year term. So for this particular policy, there's been a whole lot of deep thinking about what is in the policy, including the key areas that are important to council and the communities we serve. Coupled with this, the Municipal Association of Victoria in July released a best practice procurement policy template for Victorian councils to use. So the template policy is audit ready and it's aligned with the Act and the best practice procurement guidelines. So the new draft policy is presented for consideration is based on the workshops with councillors, feedback from local contractors and the MAV best practice policy template, obviously developed in collaboration with procurement professionals from across Victoria. We've tailored the template to reflect our own governance structure and strategic priorities, as well as internal audit recommendations, hopefully resulting in a streamlined policy that strengthens probity, consistency and strategic alignment across all procurement activities. There's 4 editable appendices, which the councillors have put a whole lot of thought into what they want the key elements to be. This includes the procurement thresholds, the financial delegations, the exemption justifications and variation limits, and the key performance indicators. I think the last part that I'll say is that importantly, the council has that we're recommending that council retains the mandatory 5% weighting for local suppliers, and also in the policy that we've said that it can be increased if a particular tender process may benefit from the increased weighting, as well as adopting a policy position that encourages local supplier participation through enshrining the number of quotes that need to be sought for local suppliers at all levels of procurement in the financial delegation and variation limits. I'll now present the report to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions for clarification regarding the contents of the report or the recommendation? No, I see none. There's a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on a councillor to move a motion.
I've lost the page. Yeah. Thank you.
Moving Councillor Eastman?
Yeah,
Or-
thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to move the recommendation in the report. Would you like me to read it out?
No, we're going to you get the seconder. Someone like to second the motion? Thank you, Councillor Davis. And
Yeah, I'll speak.
motion? Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and through you. I'd like to express my deep appreciation to the officers for the work they've put into developing this updated procurement policy, and to councillors for the way they've participated too. I'm really pleased and proud at how well we've worked together on it, and I'm sure we'll see some really good outcomes for the community as a whole, because I feel like you've really captured what we're trying to achieve with this council group. And yeah, so thank you, congratulations for your work, and thank you for your forbearance with us all as we've got our heads around procurement.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And Councillor Davis, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, and through you, Mayor. Just to reiterate Councillor Eastman's sentiments, and thank you to the officers for outstanding work on this, and yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Is the motion opposed? No, I see none. And would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Buckley?
Just to say that I think there was it's a good outcome in the sense of we really focused on ensuring that we had a lens on local procurement, and I think that communities should rest assured that councillors were very adamant that we focus on trying to procure as much as possible locally, which is a really good and positive outcome for this procurement process. So thank you, and I certainly support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. The next report is item 5.3.2, Audit and Risk Committee. Ms Johnson, would you please present your report?
Thank you very much, Mayor. So there's a few different components to this report, so I'll try to break them down in a logical sequence. So firstly, the Audit and Risk Committee is an independent advisory body set up under Section 53 of the Local Government Act. It has no delegated authority, however it does meet quarterly. Its role is to monitor, review and advise council on financial controls, risk management and corporate governance. So one of the components of the report is that the confirmed notes from the annual joint meeting held on the 7th of October are presented for council's noting. The second part of the report is the charter review. So under Section 54 of the Act, council must maintain a charter outlining the committee's functions. There's been a few vacancies recently and some recruitment that made a review of the charter timely. Council sought to strengthen the independence by setting the committee composition at 3 independent members, 1 councillor members and the mayor as ex officio. There's also been some additional amendments which are proposed, and they were actually informed by the 24-25 performance review that the committee did, which highlighted some opportunities to strengthen independence and clarify appointment processes, as well as make sure that we have correct member responsibilities. The other key charter amendments are establishing a recruitment panel, clarifying that the independent chair is appointed by council, and formalising the practice of providing a committee notes to council, which also supports transparency. Finally, the recruitment part. We went to a public EOI process to fill the independent chair and independent member roles. There was 40 applications were received with the closing date in November. The recruitment panel, which was made up of the CEO, the then Mayor, Councillor White and Councillor Ashworth, interviewed shortlisted applicants. Recommendations are included in the confidential attachment, and council is now hopefully in a position to formally appoint the independent chair and the independent member. The report is presented to you, Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Johnson. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in regards to the contents of the report or the recommendation? No, I see none. There is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on a councillor to move a motion. We have a mover. Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And a seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Allen. And Councillor Eastman, would you like to speak to the motion?
Once again, Mayor, through you, I'd like to congratulate the Governance Unit for the way they've worked on the Audit and Risk Committee operations work this year. It's been a very big year. The job they've done has been outstanding in addressing issues that council have had in regard to different things. And the quality of the committee itself is reflected in the fact that there were so many applications for positions on that committee, because it is not exactly a highly paid job for the type of work that there is. So congratulations to you all and to everyone associated with the committee. Yeah, thank you very much. Well done for a great year's work. And I'd like to recommend the motion to council. Look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And Councillor Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me, I think Councillor Eastland pretty much summed it up. So I think we've got the basis of a very good committee on the recommendations in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. And is the motion opposed? No, I see none. Do any other councillors wish to speak to the motion? No. Okay, I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you, Ms Johnson. We'll now move on to reports from the Place and Community Directorate. The first report is item 5.4.1, the use and development of land for use and development of land for timber production and the removal of native vegetation at 400, 400A and 580 Atkins Road in Ben Gordon. Before the report is presented, we have one public submission in relation to this item. Our first speaker is here. There we go. The first speaker, Mr. George Constantiakis, I hope I've said that right, who's joining us online. You have up to 5 minutes of speaking time and a sound will be played at the 30-second remaining mark. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. You can hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. My name is George Constantiakis and I'm the General Manager with Sumitomo Forestry Australia. Just a little bit about Sumitomo Forestry Australia. We're a Melbourne-based business involved in house building, landscaping and forestry, and we're committed to growing and harvesting renewable, sustainable timber plantations for use in our new homes. We're currently Australia's largest home builder with ownership of respected home builder groups that include Henley Homes and Metricon Homes. Our parent company, Sumitomo Forestry, was founded in Japan back in 1691, where we perfected the art of planting, managing and harvesting sustainable plantations around the world. We currently have over 270,000 hectares of forest under management, and in this proposal we are seeking approval from the DFP to develop our first Australian renewable radiata pine plantation in East Gippsland. Now, as part of our long-term vision, we aim to build more Victorian homes using homegrown renewable timber. This 30-year, $25 million investment in a radiata pine plantation in Bengwarden, East Gippsland, will include the planting of 488,000 radiata pine trees, which would generate around 300,000 cubic metres of renewable softwood timber, and that's enough to build 3,500 typical homes. We'll also be offsetting 90,000 tonnes of carbon dioxide emissions that would have otherwise been released into the atmosphere through the sequestration of this timber plantation. We'll be retaining 40% of the property for ongoing farming, grazing and conservation purposes, and we're also protecting and maintaining the current Gracemere homestead for ongoing residential use, and we're currently renting out that property to a local family, a vet, a husband and 3 children and 2 dogs. And we also understand the importance of this particular farm. Has been a historical farm for over 100 years, and retaining the historical sheep shearing shed for education and historical importance. And we'll be implementing best practice environmental, water, soil and bushfire management as part of our ongoing management of the property. Now, you may be aware that Victoria currently imports around 40% of its timber needs, either from overseas or from interstate. And by 2040, the demand for structural softwood timber is expected to grow by 30%. To safeguard the housing industry from supply shortages and price shocks similar to those experienced during the pandemic, we intend to invest in locally grown and sourced timber. We're making a long-term investment in East Gippsland region, and we're planning to do subsequent growth and plantations, not just one round. We're planning to have this as a continued plantation, and we'll also be doing the region with a proud timber and forestry heritage, and we intend to uphold the highest standards in terms of forestry and land management. We also welcome the East Gippsland Council's proposal to prepare a position paper on timber plantation establishment and management, and would gladly contribute our experience and knowledge to the team. Our goal is to expand investment in the region, leveraging our experience and community connections to deliver a project that both balance environmental and community needs, whilst also providing regional prosperity through increased forestry development. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr Stonkedrikos. Councillors, there is to be no discussion or debate at this point, but does anyone have any questions of clarification in relation to the submission? Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. And thank you very much for the presentation. I'm afraid I can't pronounce your surname.
Constantakis. George, just call me George.
George.
Thank you, George. Just to clarify, did you say enough timber for how many homes?
3,500 homes.
3,500.
Yeah.
Over, and before, when will harvesting begin for those?
Harvesting will be, so it's obviously a long-term investment, so it'll be long after I've retired, so it's 27 to 30 years is when we will harvest these trees for plantation. But the thing is, there's been very minimal investment in new plantation. It is historically very difficult to establish new plantation. It's not the most economical investment out there, so, you know, I guess we're in a special situation where we also need to protect our housing businesses. So we have an additional vested interest to invest in plantations for the long term. And if we don't invest in plantations now, then, the situation's going to get much worse in the future. So, it's all about making long-term investment in the business that we're also involved in, which is home building.
Thank you, George. One more, if I may, Mayor. Can you tell me, George, HVP plantations in Victoria have their own fire brigades. Will Sumitomo have their own fire brigade too?
Yeah, we'll be using, so we're working with the local groups. We're also working with HVP jointly on expanding in this area. So we have a very good relationship and connection with the HVP. But as this size of plantation, we need to invest in our own local fire brigade in terms of managing bushfire risk in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite other questions. Apologies. Oh, Councillor Buckley, question.
Thank you, George. I'm just, I read through some of the concerns that were key issues for consideration from the local communities and adjoining landowners, etc. So some of the concerns were around groundwater, pest, plant and feral animal control, and also, I guess, long-term degradation of the soil. So are those the sorts of things that you'll be addressing, and will there be further community consultation?
Yeah, so we've done, there's quite an extensive amount of testing that we've done. We've also drilled 3 boreholes around the area to see what impact we'll have on groundwater, and it's sort of what the report says is that we won't be impacting that groundwater because it's an extremely deep groundwater that's 20 metres deep and it's pressurised, so our trees won't be impacting that groundwater. We've done, we have drilled 3 boreholes, including an inspection hole, so we'll be continuously monitoring and inspecting any groundwater impacts. We've done significant ecology assessment of the area, overwater impacts, salinity impacts, change to flow in the local lakes. So we have quite an extensive amount of reporting that we've done there, and we have addressed all those concerns. And again, we can address them if anyone has any questions around some of those areas. In terms of pest controls, we do manage, obviously we have to manage it as part of being responsible land managers, and we currently do manage vermin and pest control at the moment, and it'll be an ongoing practice as we are the responsible land managers of that location. And we want to be mindful that we're there for a long time, we're part of the community, and we're also obviously like to expand further around the region, so we want to be respectful to the local communities.
And just the last part of the question was in regards to the community consultation process and engagement. We feel that the community input and that consultation process was sufficient.
I guess, we're working to DFP guidelines, so we had a drop-in session, but we have been ongoing talking to the local neighbours. We have an ongoing rapport with the local neighbours. Some of the local neighbours are actually have their cattle grazing on our property. And I guess we've been working through the issues. There is one particular neighbour that I guess that has got more concern than others, and we are working with her to resolve any issues she may have.
Thanks, George.
Thank you.
Thank you, George. Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll now ask Mr. Stevenson to present his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. So, councillors, before you is a report titled Use and Development of Land for Timber Production and the Removal of Native Vegetation at 400, 400A and 580 Aikens Road, Ben Warden. The key points of the report for Council to consider are that the Minister for Planning is the responsible authority for determining of this planning application. Council can make a submission for consideration by the Minister. This report presents a draft submission for your consideration tonight. The submission has been prepared with regard to the East Gippsland planning scheme and key council strategies. These strategies provide in-principle support for the use and development of land for timber production in East Gippsland. The draft submission, however, identifies concerns in relation to the impact of the proposal on environmental values of the site and the surrounding areas. The submission recommends that the Minister addresses these matters by seeking further information from the proponent to address deficiencies with the application. The draft submission recommends appropriate planning permit conditions to be applied if a planning permit is issued. These conditions seek to avoid, minimise and/or mitigate any impacts associated with the proposal. It is also recommended that Council prepare a position paper on timber plantation establishment and operations to inform a consistent position of future submissions or Council decisions regarding these operations. Martin Richardson's present with me tonight to help answer any questions, and the report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. Councillors, are there questions of clarification regarding the content of the report or the recommendation? Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Mr Stevenson. I've read the officer's submission, which I think is excellent. What responsibility does council have in terms of representing the community in these type of submissions, and where does the community have the opportunity, or what stage the community who's affected by these proposals, what stage are they able to be engaged?
Thank you, Councillor Eastman, and through you, Mayor. So bearing in mind that the responsible authority for the determination of the application is the Minister for Planning, the Minister or the Department who reports to the Minister identify a community consultation process. So notice was given to all surrounding landowners. The Council provided the details of those surrounding landowners as we are required by the Act. So written notice was given to every adjoining landowner. I think there were probably 50 or 60 of them. A public notice was published in the Bairnsdale Advertiser, and information was provided on the department's website. So that's the baseline requirement for community engagement. From Council's perspective, we don't seek community input because it's not our decision, and that would duplicate the processes that were implemented by the department, and the time doesn't allow us to do that. What also comes into that is that when we have had, and I've had a number of conversations with local community members about the project, and I've encouraged them in each case to read the documentation online. I've directed them to it and to make their submissions to the Minister, because it's the Minister that will consider those submissions as part of the assessment.
Thank you, Mr Richardson. Just one more bit of clarification. So it was Council who did the advertisements and notified the landowners, was it?
No, sorry, the Minister as the responsible, through your Mayor, the Minister as the responsible authority is required to direct the department to undertake the consultation. It's the same process that we would undertake if a planning application was with us under the Act, and the department undertakes the public notification process.
Oh, sorry, what department?
Department of Transport and Planning.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? No. Councillors, there is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Do I have a mover? Mover. Thank you, Councillor Allen. And a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Allen, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to say well done on that submission. I think it is very, very comprehensive and well written, and states our position very well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen and Councillor Crook.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I second what Councillor Allen says. I believe the submission that Council is making to the state in relation to this proposal is quite comprehensive. It raises a number of matters that we believe are relevant to both the community and the local environment, and that we would ask that the Minister take into consideration in making their determination. We would also ask that the proponent be a willing participant in working with us and our community to see that those concerns are duly addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. And is the motion opposed? I see none. And
Would anyone else?
like anyone else to speak for the motion? Thank you. Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. I second what Councillor Crook had to say about the quality of the motion. I'm really impressed with what the officers have put together. I think it's excellent, and it's so important that we have such comprehensive and sound submissions put in from council when they have to become the voice of the community in these circumstances where they're only planning a referral authority rather than determining authority, I'm sorry. So thank you very much for that on behalf of the community. I hope they feel when they read the submission that they get that you understand the issues. I think it's really impressive. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Thank you, George. The next report is item 5.4.2, Open Space Strategy 2025 to 2035. Mr Stevenson, would you please present the report?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and through you. So, councillors, before you is a report titled Open Space Strategy 2025 to 2035. The aim of the Open Space Strategy is to establish a strategic vision and provide a high-level, overarching long-term framework to guide the future planning, development, provision and management of open spaces within East Gippsland. Public open space is at the heart of our communities in all its forms, which include parks, gardens, sports ovals, waterways, trails and civic areas, etc. The strategy will support Council in effectively managing and servicing existing public open space while guiding future development to provide a strategic approach to management of public open space network that meets community needs. It has been developed in alignment with a range of reference documents and existing evidence-based frameworks, as well as a broad engagement with the community, key stakeholders and internal resources. The strategy will support Council in creating and sustaining livable towns, healthy environments and communities and vibrant local economies. So, councillors, I'm pleased to present the draft East Gippsland Shire Council Open Space Strategy 2025 to 2035 for adoption. I've got Wayne Richards also present with me tonight if there's any questions, and so the report is presented to you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification in regard to the contents of the report or the recommendation? No, I don't see any. Could I have a mover of the motion? Thank you, Councillor Crook. And a seconder for the motion, please, councillors. Thank you, Councillor Davies. And would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Crook?
I certainly would. Public open space. It is an essential part of what makes our communities and our place what it is. It's a core part of Council's business, is managing these open areas, and we're talking football grounds, parks. They are the places where our communities gather, and they are very, very important to the people of the region, and Council has put a large amount of work into trying to understand what the needs are for this public open space, where those public open spaces need to be, both now and into the future. And this strategy seeks to bring all that information together to ensure that public open space serves net community benefit both now and in the long term. So I recommend the motion to Council.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor Davies, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, and through you, Mayor, I think Councillor Crook covered that fairly comprehensively. Thank you.
Is the motion opposed? I see none. Would any other councillors like to speak for or against the motion? I see none, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. That motion is carried. The next report is item 5.4.3, the community grants impact for 25-26. And Councillor Buckley and Ms Johnson, you've declared a conflict in relation to this item, so I'll now ask you to leave the meeting until the item is heard. Thank you. Okay. Mr Stevenson, would you please present your report?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So, councillors, before you is a report titled Community Impact Grants 2025-26. The key points of the report for your consideration are Council receives numerous requests for financial support for programs and projects that support our community. The vast majority of these are great projects that will have a positive impact and align with Council objectives, including strengthening our communities, environmental sustainability, social connection, health and wellbeing, and social inclusion. To provide this financial support, Council's Community Impact Grants program provides a framework to enable this financial support in a structured and inclusive manner. The Community Impact Grant program provides the opportunity for organisations to apply for between $3,000 and $20,000. Applications were open from the 1st to the 31st of October, with 36 applications received, requesting a total of $461,000. We acknowledge the time and work that has gone in to all of the applications. Applications were assessed by an assessment panel in accordance with the Council's grant guidelines. From this process, 15 applications have been recommended for an amount totalling $135,000, and that combined with the application's contribution brings it up to a value of $284,000. The recommended applications are provided as confidential attachment 1, and I'm pleased to present this recommendation for Council's approval. Wayne's obviously still present with me, so the report is presented to you for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Stevenson. And councillors, just a reminder that this report contains confidential information and attachments, so please remember that if you wish to discuss any of the contents, we'll need to move into a closed session. But are there any questions of clarification regarding the contents or recommendation? I see none. Great. There is a recommendation in the report, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Councillor Crook, thank you. And a seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor White. And Councillor Crook, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. I have no hesitation in recommending the officer's recommendation here for the community grants round. This is an important thing that our council does in supporting community groups to help our communities. You'll hear from the officer's report that this is a mechanism for council to leverage council's investment from the investment already being made by the community. By and large, these are volunteer groups out there doing the things that they think are important and contributing to making East Gippsland a better place. And this grants program is council's one of the ways that council endorses and supports them to do so. So it's a great program. There's a range of great projects here. It's been very competitive this year, and unfortunately we can't award money to everybody, but I encourage everybody to keep applying. And there are some great projects that we can all look forward to and hopefully get involved with. So thank you to the applicants.
Thank you, Councillor Crook. And Councillor White, would you like to speak to the motion?
As Tom said, only I could just add congratulations to those people who have achieved the grants this year, or this round, and I'm certain that those recipients will put this to great use in their communities.
Thank you, Councillor.
On behalf of Council.
Thank you, Councillor White. Is the motion opposed? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I see none. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. And I'll now just wait till we get Councillor Buckley back in the room and back online. Councillor Buckley is back. Thank you. The last report in the open meeting agenda for tonight is item 5.4.4, seeking further direction on planning scheme amendment C170 Gibbs. Mr. Stevenson, would you please present your report?
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. So, councillors, before you is a report titled Seeking Further Direction on Planning Scheme Amendment C170 GIP. The key points of the report for council to consider are: Planning Scheme Amendment C170 GIP proposes to implement the recommendations of the Rural Land Use Strategy. The Rural Land Use Strategy was finalised and adopted by Council in July 2023 after extensive consultation. Following adoption of the Rural Land Use Strategy, Planning Scheme Amendment C170 GIP was prepared and Council resolved to lodge the amendment for authorisation and to exhibit the amendment at the July 2024 Council meeting. C170 GIP was authorised by the Minister for Planning on the 2nd of October 2024. However, the amendment did not proceed to exhibition immediately due to the 2024 caretaker period associated with the local government election cycle. Since then, Council has been briefed on 2 occasions. However, there has been no clear direction provided to officers on how the councillor group would like to progress C170 GIP. The report is brought forward based on briefings and the desire of some of the councillor group to bring C170 GIP to this December council meeting for a decision. As outlined in the report, it is the officer's recommendation that C170 GIP proceed to exhibition so that we can fully understand the views of the community on Planning Scheme Amendment C170 GIP. Along with Martin Richardson, I've also got Kalindi Chester here with us to help answer any questions tonight, and the report is presented for your consideration. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Councillors, are there any questions of clarification regarding the contents of the report or the recommendation? Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms Chester. I note your report and recommendation that the C170 go to exhibition to get a sense of community views in relation to the amendment and the strategy. Can you explain the extent to which you have identified community views before it actually became part of C170? Like the reason why this exhibition is needed now to inform your understanding?
Exhibition is Thank you, Councillor Eastman, and through you, Mayor. You'd think I'd have that by now. Exhibition is a mandatory requirement of any planning scheme amendment unless otherwise told by the Minister. So 9 times out of 10 we must exhibit. We have not exhibited the planning scheme amendment yet. That is the current and next step in the process. In terms of consultation on the strategy itself, there was consultation undertaken between 2022 and 2023 when it was adopted. The consultation at the time, and to be fair, I did not work at council then, but I have looked at what we've done. There were our standard consultation methods such as your say, there was a survey, there was in-person, I guess you call it a roadshow, where staff went to places such as Omeo, Orbost, trying to remember where else they went, to have some face-to-face interactions and drop-in sessions with community members on the strategy itself. So, yes, we've done the consultation on the strategy, but as I said, not on the amendment because that is the next step in the process.
If I may, Mayor, one more.
Yep. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Ms Chester. Can you advise if it was to go to exhibition now, and which means that the committee would have the opportunity to have further input into the amendment, to what extent would that, if the community was not happy with the amendment, for instance, to what extent would they be able to change what's in the amendment?
So exhibition provides the community the Thank you, Councillor Eastman, and through you, Mayor. I'm tired. Exhibition provides the community the opportunity to provide feedback and comment on changes or things they think have been left out. We collate those submissions and it comes before council to make a decision to whether we proceed to a planning panel or the amendment proceeds as it is, or the amendment is abandoned. So it's another decision point for council. Then obviously if council choose to send it to a planning panel, that process itself considers all those submissions and invites any submitters to be part of that process if they so wish.
Thank you. Councillors, the report contains 4 possible motions, so I'll now call on any councillor to move a motion. Councillor Eastman.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a motion that isn't one of the 4 on the report.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see it's on the board. Would you like me to read it?
Thank you.
The council notes that the proposed planning scheme amendment C170E Gips relies on the East Gippsland rural land use strategy that was commenced almost a decade ago and therefore doesn't reflect recent changes in the region's primary industries and the increase in non-agricultural activity occurring within the farm zone. Number 2, confirms its understanding that there are a range of views held across the East Gippsland community about the adopted East Gippsland rural land use strategy. 3, requests that officers report to council on how a comprehensive review of the rural land use strategy could be undertaken to ensure that the strategy considers contemporary trends and district-based needs. This report should also provide indicative timeframes, engagement requirements and costs so that these can potentially be built into the 2026-27 annual budget and action plan. 4, defers any decision on planning scheme amendment C170E Gips until such time as the report requested in recommendation 3 is received and fully considered by council. 5, requests that the Chief Executive Officer ensures that the East Gippsland Rural Land Use Strategy 2023 is not further implemented or used to inform decision making until such time as the report requested in recommendation 3 is fully considered by council. And 6, authorises the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to provide a public statement on this decision.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Davies. Councillor Eastman, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. At the outset, I would sincerely like to thank the officers for their report and for the considerable time they've taken to brief councillors on the preparation of the strategy and the statutory processes required to give it formal legal status through incorporation into the East Gippsland planning scheme. That work is acknowledged and appreciated. However, at this stage, I can't support any of the officers' motions. The closest that comes to what I can support is to abandon the planning scheme amendment, which is not satisfactory. The intent of the rural land use strategy is sound. It was developed to support a diversity of agricultural enterprises of various scales, to promote emerging opportunities for rural industries, boutique farming and rural tourism, and to recognise and protect important environmental and landscape values. It seeks to protect land for agricultural production, encourage agri-industry and business where appropriate, provide greater certainty around the protection of agricultural land in accordance with state and regional policy, and recognise that agriculture is fundamental to our economy and requires a contemporary approach to planning. However, the difficulty I have is not with the intent of the strategy, but with its currency and its relevance, and the process now being proposed. I understand the strategy had its genesis in a grant-funded process commencing in 2015, which produced a substantial background report and a draft RLUS. I also understand there was a significant hiatus between that work and the strategy that was brought back to Council many years later. When it was finally presented, it generated substantial public interest and, quite frankly, controversy. That reaction should not surprise us. Over the past decade, East Gippsland has experienced profound and compounding change. We've lived through the 2019-2020 bushfires, COVID, and the decline or severe contraction of traditional industries, particularly forestry. At the same time, we are now seeing major policy-driven shifts, including the fast-tracking of renewable energy projects, plantations, and other alternative land uses that are actively reducing the extent of productive agricultural land, the very thing this strategy purports to protect. Against that backdrop, I have real concerns that the Office's recommendations to continue with Planning Scheme Amendment C 170E Gips by proceeding straight to public exhibition. Doing so leaves the community with extraordinarily limited opportunity to influence either the underlying strategy or the amendment itself, regardless of how necessary changes may be. Exhibition at this stage, in my opinion, is not genuine engagement. It is largely the provision of information with very limited scope for meaningful change. That is particularly troubling given our renewed commitment to our community engagement strategy and the IAP2 framework, which clearly sets expectations that those directly affected by the decisions should be involved at a much higher level than simply being notified after the fact. I note the report states that affected landholders will be directly notified during exhibition. In my view, that is too little too late. Many landholders would be completely unaware of the implications for their properties, their business and their future options until the process is effectively locked in. The reality is that land use pressures in East Gippsland are intensifying. Productive farmland is being incrementally eroded, often through mechanisms that sideline local voices and reduce council to a referral authority whose recommendations can be disregarded. That makes it even more critical that our guiding strategy is contemporary, robust and reflective of current and emerging challenges. From my perspective, making minor changes to the proposed planning scheme amendment will not fix the fundamental issue, that the rural land use strategy itself is out of date and not fit to guide decision-making into the future. The only responsible course of action is to pause, withdraw from the current process, review and update the strategy and ensure it genuinely balances agricultural protection with sustainable economic development and population retention and growth across East Gippsland's diverse and unique districts. This is not delay for delay's sake. It is good governance, sound planning and respectful engagement with our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Eastman. And Councillor Davies, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, and through you, Mayor. I support the motion put forward, and I also commend Councillor Eastman in bringing the motion forward. Fantastic effort. Diverse views expressed by our community highlight the need for a comprehensive review of the rural land use strategy. By undertaking this review, we can ensure the planning amendments effectively meet the needs of our East Gippsland community. I encourage my fellow councillors to support this motion as we aim to take the necessary steps to align our planning strategies with the current realities of East Gippsland, ensuring that our decisions reflect the values of our community.
Thank you, Councillor Davies. Is the motion opposed? I see none. Would any other councillor like to speak for the motion? Councillor Buckley.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, I will support the alternative motion and Mayor, I don't think this will fail, so I don't really need to foreshadow an alternative motion, but in case it does, I will foreshadow an alternate motion.
Thank you.
First, I want to acknowledge the many submissions we received from the public during the original consultation. I read them all, and in my view, those submissions need further consideration. Our community raised genuine concerns, and it's our responsibility to ensure their voices are truly heard before we move forward, and that our new councillors are given the opportunity to review this most important work. We could have at this juncture considered abandoning the planning amendment. However, there has been considerable investment already in the strategy, so that is something that I don't support. A review and amendments or additions will ensure this strategy is successful. One of the most contentious issues has been the proposed changes to the as-of-rights rules, particularly the shift in the 40-hectare minimum for dwellings in the farming zone. This change has sparked significant debate and uncertainty among landholders and residents. It's clear that there are a range of views across our community, and we must take the time to properly address them. It is also important to remember that the rural land use strategy we're relying on, as stated, was developed nearly a decade ago. Our region has changed dramatically since then, both in terms of primary industries and the rise of non-agricultural activity in rural areas. We owe it to our community to review this strategy with fresh eyes and clear intention to create a fair, balanced approach that supports a prosperous rural future. That's why I support this motion. It calls for a comprehensive review of the strategy with clear timeframes, community engagement and costings, so we can build this work into our next budget and action plan. It also asks us to defer any decision on the planning scheme amendment until this review is complete, and to pause further implementation of the current strategy in the meantime. This is not about delaying progress, it's about making sure we get it right. With a new council in place, we have an opportunity to set a strong foundation for rural planning that reflects today's realities and tomorrow's opportunities. So let's take this final step to review, consult and ensure our strategy truly meets the needs of all East Gippsland's rural communities before it becomes law. I commend Councillor Eastman's motion to you and urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Buckley. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those for? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. Next on the agenda is item 6, urgent business. CEO, I believe there is no urgent business for tonight's meeting.
No, Mayor, no urgent business.
Thank you. We have 2 items listed in the agenda as confidential business tonight. Councillors, I'll need a motion that Council close the meeting to the public in accordance with the provision of Section 66 of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the following items. Item 7.1, property matter. Item 7.2, contract matter. And it's been moved by Councillor Crook and seconded by Councillor White. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Crook? Like to speak to the motion, Councillor White?
Let's put it to the vote.
Thank you. Is anyone opposed to the motion? I see none, so let's put it to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you, councillors. The motion is carried. councillors. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. That concludes the proceedings for tonight's meeting. Thank you to everyone that attended in the public gallery and for those who watched online. As we head into Christmas and the busy summer season, I'm continually reminded of what makes East Gippsland such a special place, the way we connect as families, neighbours and communities. This time of year gives us a chance to pause, reconnect and appreciate the people and places that shape our everyday lives. To everyone working through the festive season in emergency services, healthcare, hospitality, retail, tourism, farming, transport and across council, thank you. Your dedication keeps our region running while others take a well-deserved break. On behalf of my fellow councillors and all council staff, I wish you and your families a joyful, safe and connected Christmas and a bright start to the new year. I now declare the meeting closed at 7:40.